Welcome in. We are live with Soul Awakening Conversations Emerge and Flow. This is a space of openness. This is a space of curiosity. And this is a space of gentle truth. How each person takes their spiritual awakening that becomes their belief system, that eventually becomes their truth, and how they use it in their everyday life in service to themselves and in service to others, if they so choose. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. This is not a space to convince you to be anything or anyone that you are not willing to be all on your own. We are only sharing with you how we grew, what we went through, what we're going through, and how we chose to share it with others. So it's not meant to reshape you. You're the only one that can reshape yourself. We're just assisting with information. And information is, you know what? Infinite. It's infinite. There's an infinite amount of information there. You can choose what you need when you need it. I am so happy to I am welcoming Titus Glenn to sit down and have this cosmic conversation with you. Titus is offering one he's offering himself, his rootedness in his lived experience, in his spiritual embodiment, in his service to others. So let's welcome him in. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This is not a place to argue. I'm not going to convince you to be anything that you don't want to be. And I hope he shares with you some really good information. I've grown from just watching his videos and listening to him share. So I hope you grow too. Welcome in, Titus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you again for the opportunity.
All right. So we're gonna get started. All right.
Okay,
Because
let's get it.
guys, when he agreed to do this, I went into meditation and I told the divine, I said, I've got to have these questions have Titus is deep. Okay. No, I won't say any more deeper than any of my other guests that I have been on, but I have watched him over this last year that I have, started following you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were first on, it was just about your your awakening moment, and we
Yes.
talked about that. But now it's expanded because I I now understand. It's like I didn't know you were a reverend. You know what I mean?
It just happened recently. We're going on our year anniversary in May, and that is exciting for me because it was under the one and only Reverend Dr. Yanla Van Zant. And
Mm-hmm.
so to be licensed under her ministry has been life changing, to say the least. The whole experience, the growing process, being able to sit with what I would say one of the greatest spiritual leaders, teachers of our time. You know, everybody don't get that opportunity, so I'm grateful.
Yeah. I was so excited. It's like reverend. And then on top of that, guys, the music, the songwriting. I mean, when I first started following you, I was watching you write lyrics
Hmm.
and share them. And it was like, and now you're teaching the vibrational frequency of how to um, calm your nervous system
Hmm.
and everything. So I'm going to start with these questions because I'm just so excited. I hope
Okay.
we can get through them because I went from 3 to 5, from 3 to 5, guys. So here we go. In your own life experience and your daily practice, what helped you reshape your, because, and this comes from, I'm also hearing you talk about deconstruction. So
Hmm.
this, where this question kind of came from. What helped you reshape your belief in God, your belief in spirituality, and how the universe actually works?
I think for me, what helped me reshape it is realizing that my experiences in church were still real. And what I mean by that is that I've been singing pretty much all my life, but having a mic in hand and leading worship and the seeing and feeling atmosphere shift is a real experience.
Okay.
And so, um, really deconstructing what that was all about really has pushed me to study um, study music, study what the presence of the Lord is from a scientific point of view. So, really, to answer your question, what really pushed me down this thought pattern was God, source creator, divine intelligence. What was that experience about? Because to lead people in worship, prophesy, speak in tongues, and not just do it, but to have moments to where you see things come to pass. There's been prophetic utterances that I have given to people that I have seen manifest, and for me, I could not just throw it all away because I've seen some things. I've had some experiences. So
Right.
to answer your question, really being more curious about what it was that caused it to happen, how to create those moments, and to even have conversation with those that are unpacking the journey for themselves, because it really can be triggering and daunting when you have experienced God in this churchy way, but then what do you do with all that experience when you are spiritual or still want a connection with God, but don't really know how to uh, connect what your experience is now with what it was then?
Yeah. And and like I've told a few people, I started this, I think, from the moment I came out my mother's womb, uh, asking, embodying these embodying questions. I didn't know at that time, being so young and asking all these questions every time someone would talk about the I guess uh, origin nature of Adam and Eve, because
Mhm.
I grew up Baptist. Okay,
Okay,
so, and Northern Baptist, very different from Southern Baptist.
for sure,
A little more lenient, but not really.
for sure.
They had their strictness in their own way, and
Hmm.
so I was always this kid that drove all the adults that were in church crazy, because I was always asking questions when things just didn't seem right to me.
Okay.
I would ask, and of course they would send me home with a little note pinned on me. You know, and take care of your daughter. She's disruptive. And my mom would always go, okay, what question did you ask now?
Mm.
And I would sit there at our kitchen table and I would say, well, I asked this because it just didn't seem right. And if she didn't have an answer, she would say, go back and ask again. She would give
Mm.
me permission. Oh, you annoyed them, go annoy them some more, because that's a legitimate question.
So,
So
for sure.
I think I think as a kid, I've always been deconstructing.
Mm.
I just didn't wait to, I had uh, the presence of my mother, which I believe she was my guardian, spiritual guardian that came in human form to
Okay.
have me, right?
Mm.
So So for about 30 years of my life, at least for the spiritual questions or the religious questions, I always had my mom like pushing me to ask more, or okay, if you're not getting it in our church, there's a church up the street, there's a Methodist church, see if you can find some information there, or go to a holiness church and see if, I always had that permission, to do that. So I think now that I think or listen to how difficult some people are talking about their deconstruction is, I go, oh, I didn't know it's that difficult, because because they've been sitting there longer than maybe I had,
Hmm.
and nobody gave them a choice to keep asking.
Yeah, I think it can be difficult just because when you start asking the questions, not everybody's willing to answer, or they don't have an answer. So I think we've discussed this from the last shows, that is a blessing that your mom was able to hold that space for you, because from my experience, when you start asking questions about God and heaven, hell, start opening up dialogue around what Jesus really meant. Did he really say this? And even last year, one of the biggest things that I discovered is that the gospels are anonymous. But who knows that? Who knows that in regular church? Even last night, I was talking to a guy I just met, and we were just having a conversation around most preachers, pastors don't even know the history of the Bible, but yet they start
Right.
churches because I'll say it, in our culture, once you feel called by God, you can go sit under somebody for a couple of years, and then they'll release you to start your own church, but you don't even have any knowledge of the Bible in itself or where it came from. A lot of Christians don't even know, especially African Americans. I think this is really big. Like, they don't know that the Bible that we were given, like, we weren't even considered to be human in some of these time frames. So to have this gospel uh, to be preached to us, and for us to hold on to it, is diabolical in my opinion. And that might be too harsh a word, but it's like we were not, especially like King James, we were in slavery. Like, so you have a
Right.
gospel that is being moved throughout the world for uh, people who are in slavery, can't really be free on their own, not free to worship privately, but yet we are being preached to from this Bible that we were not even giving or privy to even have questions about. And I think that in itself has not left a lot of our Black culture. I
Hmm.
heard somebody say that Black people hate everything about slavery except Christianity. And I found that very interesting. And I'm not saying that you have to hate your faith, but I think a lot of people have been afraid to question that faith because of what it has brought to them. And there is a certain the word prestige that comes with being a Christian. It's like you get certain privileges for now, in a way, if you say
Right.
that you believe in God and that Jesus saved your life, and it's like the medal to keep to have.
Yeah, because I think one is because my mom passed away when I was about 30-ish, 31, 32. My children were still were preteen stage. And like I said, she was the kind of like the wings behind me that
Hmm.
let me keep asking those questions. So by the time I got to my 30s and she passed away, and I was still looking for, I think at that point, a church home,
Mm.
right? Um, and trying to, also trying to find my place in all of it, because I knew that I knew, not
Mm-hmm.
I believed, but I knew that I knew that God was very close,
For
you know,
absolutely.
but because I was, I was grew up in that religion that said God was out there. God, you know, God chose said that you were a sinner because of this origin story,
Mm-hmm.
and also had that, you know, fear instilled in you that you have to make yourself picture perfect in this human form. Then, and the only way you're going to know that God accepts you is when you die, right?
Right.
So you work all this time in human form, and it's pretty much not really enjoying any of your life, because you've got to, make sure that you don't cross any, that all your I's are dotted and all your T's are crossed. And it's based on other people saying, well, I'm an emissary, or the interconnection between God and you, and I'm going to tell you what God thinks of you. And we're talking about pastor, minister, uh,
Right.
uh, you know, uh, any of the clergy or whatever. And so when I got to that place where I was started to feel the divine in me, my mom passed away,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I kind of retreated a little bit. Okay, I don't think that my mom's death made me do the born again Christian thing, but it was non-denominational. It wasn't a Baptist, it wasn't Methodist, it wasn't Lutheran, it wasn't any of those. So it was non-denominational, and I said, "Oh, this must be it.
Mm-hmm.
This is they're going to teach me this closeness that I feel." And what they taught me was, it taught me it didn't teach me how to live. It taught me a certain uh, uh, wording that I had to go tell other people, because I'm supposed to be, I'm supposed to tell other people, okay, if you're not living the Christ, if you're not living Christ like, if you don't believe that you're a sinner, if you don't believe that because you're a sinner that Jesus died on the cross for your sin, he shed it blood, and you have to believe on the blood of Jesus, and you're going to go to hell. That's what I
Right.
started having to say automatically. Not did I get my life together, not that I
Right.
started to use it in my everyday life and whatnot. It was, now you need to go out and you need to bring other people to the church. You need to bring other people in. And I didn't understand it there then, but I understand it now, because when I started repeating it, I and I would go, I actually said that. I actually
Mm-hmm.
condemned people. That didn't feel right. Okay, so that still got outside of me, and I just had to go, okay, no more, and once I left that, I got the famous last words, well, you just turned your back on God,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was like, now I understand the deconstruction part of what people are going through.
Absolutely, because you end up having to change communities in a sense. It really is what I call like a type of divorce. It really
Right.
is a type of divorce because people that don't get it, they treat you a different way. Um, it's like the group of people that you used to hang around with, you can't really hang around with because you feel displaced.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of those things. It's like that you have to see. Sometimes you have to see them publicly. And if anybody that's ever been through a divorce, it's almost it's a weight that you go through when you can't uh, grieve without seeing the individual. And I would say a lot of it's not the individual, it's just the experience because you see Jesus everywhere. You see,
everywhere. Yeah.
everywhere. So you can't necessarily shut it off because this nation, quote unquote, is built on people being saved. And so it is definitely a lot to unpack when you are navigating a belief system that most of, I ain't gonna say most of the world, but a lot of your close people are associated with, and you just can't, get around it until you start deconstructing, and then until you start getting into other circles with different belief systems. But that takes courage. That
Yeah.
takes courage to ask the questions, to go to other places. I think for me, it took courage to first own my sexuality, but then also go to other churches that accepted it, because that was foreign to me to have access or even the knowledge and the information that there were other churches that would be okay with me being a same gender loving black man. Because
Hmm.
as far as I knew, you
Right.
don't do that, you go to hell. And most of the churches that I was connected to was preaching, they was preaching that message at least once a month about
Right.
fornication,
Right.
fornication,
Yeah.
and more so fornication and being gay and all that.
Yeah. The
So
Sodom and Gomorrah, and
absolutely,
you know
absolutely,
that. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those things that people, when you walk through it, it takes time. It takes patience with yourself because at any moment you could be triggered.
Yeah, at any moment. I mean, it's the same thing. I've been, the first half of my life, this is what I truly believe. I believe that my soul chose me being born in 1957 so that I could, and I make some people laugh with this. My soul wanted me to date men, uh, date my high school sweetheart, marry my high school sweetheart, have children with my high school sweetheart. We had three children, and then at some point, marriage wasn't his cup of tea, and he walked.
Hmm.
That was the and when his higher being uh, kind of left, it opened the door for something different to happen, me to start
Hmm.
living life. Now I have to live life as a single mother. The church was telling me you need to go marry, get get another, get a good Christian man, because you'll never be able to raise your kids by yourself. That's not a given. Your kids are gonna, you won't be able to hold family together. I mean, all of these things, and this is, there's no support there, right? Plus,
Right.
my ex-husband was not a Baptist.
Hmm.
So woe is I'm just left. We can't help you because he's not a Baptist,
Hmm.
right? But I believe my soul wanted me to experience that, but also within me there was, I just had an affinity. Is that the word? Or I knew that my next relationship is with a woman,
Hmm.
right? And then for all of those individuals, when I came out, they were like, "Well, no, you have kids. No, you had a husband. You need to go get, you need to go get hands laid on you. You need to, uh, something is is wrong with you,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. See, that's what happens when you leave the church.
Hmm.
I'm telling you, they did
Sure.
a whole lot of, hold on a second, my thingy is, hold on, my battery just died on something. There we go. So I have Grace says, I believe God allows the grace. Her name is Grace, but she says, I believe God allows us the grace to have mishaps as he knows we're not perfect, and and I've learned from those mishaps so that I do better in the future. I see that as a win-win.
Mm.
I see it as a win-win too. I don't see mistakes are part of why we're here. That's
For sure.
a part of my whole learning. But my thing was, I didn't choose to be with a woman because I had a I was dis I discombobulated from my ex. He just left. It was just a, matter of fact, we're really good friends now
Mm.
because I learned to surrender and just let it be, and that opened me up for when he decided he wanted to have an apology, and I could say, yeah, I get it. I understand how energy moves. I understand that if it was not for you, things we would not be the way we are now.
Mm.
There wouldn't have been energy and room to or doors to open for me if you had not if he hadn't said, well, marriage isn't what I thought it was going to be. We were 21 when we got married.
Understood.
We were babies. We
You're
were,
back.
yeah, my mother was trying to, and his mother was trying to convince us, well, wait a little bit. Why don't you wait till you finish college? Why don't you wait till
Yeah.
you do this? And no, we were just stubborn. We knew it all, right? That kind of thing. So actually, you have answered the second question with the first question.
Okay.
So, and the second question was, you support people in deconstructing belief systems that have kept them in fear and victim consciousness. From your experience, what shifts internally when someone begins to reclaim personal responsibility and or personal sovereignty? Do you want
Oh,
to add
that's really
into that?
big. I would add. I mean, what shifts? I would say is your willingness to discover that you can trust yourself. And I say that because when you are deconstructing, you have to start to lean in to what do I believe? And that takes self awareness and self trust. And so when you're navigating through your own questions, relying on somebody else's knowledge for your internal compass has to be demolished.
Right.
And you have to really learn to go with, especially what I like what Grace said, like you have to go with what feels true for you. And a lot of people don't have access to what feels true for them right off because they have given a lot of that over to what the Bible says, what my mama's saying, what the pastor says. And you have to, that compass has to shift to, okay, they said it, but what do I feel about it? And sometimes that takes you having your own experience with it before
Hmm.
you can decide what it is that you actually believe about it. And
Exactly.
that in itself can be scary because the experiences that you might need to have to figure out what works for you, there's a somewhere in your brain that says that's wrong, don't do that. And so some of your experiences come with the fight because you have not given yourself an opportunity to be open to say, let me just try and see if this is even for me.
Exactly. Exactly. I think also I was talking to a young man. It was just a conversation. It didn't start out to, it was just a hello, how are you? And then, oh, you've got a really nice smile. I think he was trying to hit on me. he was, and I'm talking young man. So I have to say, oh, thank you very much. But you're 25 and I'm 67. Thank you very much. But it started to be, um, he asked a question. He said, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. I don't know if I'll give you an answer, but go ahead and ask. He says,
Mm.
are you, it might seem like it's strange. Are you afraid to believe in God? And I never heard it posed like that. And I
Mm.
told him, I said, I never heard anyone pose the question. I've usually heard people say, do you believe in God? He says, well, for me, I find it perplexing because I'm trying to find God, but when I'm asking people, just random people, they're afraid to tell me where they for them. I said, well,
Mm.
maybe you might want to think about asking the question a different way. But no,
Okay.
I don't fear. But then I answered his question. I said, but I'm going to answer your question as best I can. I don't fear finding God. What I think most people fear is they fear the origin story of the God they find.
Mm.
It might not be for their highest and greatest good. And when I answered that, for him, it was like, oh, that's an answer for me too.
Mm.
Because I think in deconstructing as my adult self, I hadn't got to that point because when my mom died, I think everything got um, buried in a little deep hole.
Mm.
When we laid her to rest, I think that got laid to rest with me because I'm going, okay, now I just got to really focus on how I'm going to keep raising my kids, single kids. They're all becoming teenagers. Oh my god, my mom's gone, and she was kind of like the one that was kind of the wings, behind me.
Yeah,
How am I going to do
for
this?
sure.
you know And I thought about it. She gave me permission to ask all the questions that would keep me uh, not searching for God outside of myself, but gave me permission to search for God within myself. And when she kind of left, I don't think there was anybody there to protect me from all those people who want to suck me back into where I came from.
Mm.
Not where I came from. All the hurdles that I had jumped over, getting away from that wasn't for my highest and greatest good. I just didn't know how to protect myself from that. So I told him, I said, I just, I think that you don't have to do anything. I think that you can seek God from within, but you have to find out from which part of within that you need to seek it from.
For sure.
Do you think, and this is not a question here, but if you were to answer his question the way he asked it, are you afraid to seek God? How would you answer that for him or for yourself to him?
I would say I don't think I'm afraid to find out who God is. I think that for me right now the question is finding out who I really am. Because that for me they're one and the same. And that's the path I'm on currently. Not saying that I'm the
Mhm.
all powerful God or you're the all powerful God, but the way that I am leaning and discovering who God is the idea that in this consciousness, God wrapped himself in this particular flesh, which is you and me, and chose to live life this way. And so to go on that journey to discover who you are, that is scary. because you find out how powerful you are, how much of an influence you have in the reality that you choose to create. And in that, you begin to you begin to question yourself. You begin to sit with what's true, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And once you start to manifest, once you start to realize how powerful you are, it's almost like you start paying attention to everything.
Oh,
What you say,
that was.
do,
I wish you
how
were
you
in
move.
the room when I was having that conversation with him, because that is a much better way to say it.
Mm,
Because I think he was searching for a reason to be okay with searching.
mm. But that's the thing. I think for me, is like, because we're human beings, we thrive off connection, and that's for me why the fight is to control connection with people in God is really, if you control that connection. I was reading somewhere, if you control that connection, you are pretty much in power. And so that journey, or the willingness to say, I want to be in connection. I think that's the be in connection with God. I think that is the universal thing that a lot of people go after, right? So that's why they pick a religion or choose a religion or connect with a religion, because it gives them access to something higher than themselves, purpose,
Hmm.
meaning. But the real work, when you discover that this higher being, that you are connected in ways that you can't even realize on this human playing field. So
Right.
to answer his question, it really would be more around being more afraid to be in connection with you, as if you were in connection with the God of your understanding.
Ah, yes. Yes. Welcome in,
Yeah.
Casey. Um, Grace also says, she says, and I love this. Grace, why are you in my head? Okay. This is something that I used to wrestle with for a while. She says, I associated the word with God with churches that I attended, and it turned the word sour. Then, through meditation and research, I learned the word God is just a word.
Mhm.
It still falls under the universe and unity.
I
And
love that.
this is the same thing. It's like God for me had turned into a word that man was using for themselves.
For
That
sure.
so for me it was, and that's why I was asking so many questions, especially as a teenager, because I would hear God is this, and I would watch the the pastor sweat till he was wringing wet with a sermon, and at the end of it feel empty
Mm,
while everybody else was praising and whatnot. I was kind of going, what?
mm.
You or looking at them throw the word God around whenever they wanted people to do exactly what they wanted them to do. Well, God says, and that kind of thing. So, and I like grace, I associated it with church,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, that's
But
a
but
powerful awareness,
that's outside of me.
because that's been I guess that's the textbook for church. If you want to be a part of a lot of organizations, you got to read that book. Um, but the harm comes because, again, people don't really know how to interpret it unless
Mhm.
they actually study, go to school, and most do not. They
Mhm.
study based upon their own revelation, and then they start looking for scripture to support their revelation, not having history of where the Bible came from, no history of the dialect, what was going on in the culture. so many things. And so I I I just really I have had to really pause and just let people do them
Right,
to
right.
be at peace that that book in itself is man-made. It has a lot of universal truths, but when applied inaccurately, it does a lot of harm.
Yeah.
And so for me, the Bible in itself is a book of the mind, especially when you start looking at it from a metaphysical point of view. It's I like the way somebody said it the other day. It's a book on how to live consciously or how to create consciously. When you start looking at the Bible with Adam and Eve, and really being protons and electrons, and it just brings on a different type of meaning, flavor, understanding, that this book
Mhm.
was not meant to be a moral book but turned into one for sake of control.
For yeah, for sake of control. You know, about the 16th, 1700, in that year when it started getting translated and used to con, you know, if we can control the people, if we can tell them that they're sinful, and we can tell them that they can work to this, to get to this, in to get back into God's good graces, and we just, you know, rewrite a few things. We take out a few, you know, letters or notes or whatever, you know, was a compilation of this book. But I want to shift the conversation to question number three. You are a lyricist and a musician, and you work deeply with sound and vibration. How does the music, the tone, the vocal frequency help people release their fear based conditioning and reconnect to their own inner authority? How are you helping people to do this?
That's a beautiful question, the way that you put that. First and foremost, I'm providing the experience, especially currently with little snippets and giving people the opportunity just to follow along, a call and response, if you will. And the way that that is really taking shape is very beautiful to see, because a lot of people are not aware of the power of their own voice.
Mm,
So to do the exercises and to feel it in your body, you can't take away somebody's experience. And so what I've been getting a lot on social media is that people have said they feel goosebumps, they feel better, they feel a sense of peace. And so my work has evolved so that people can understand that the best medicine that you can give yourself is your own voice. And this connects with trusting your inner voice. And
mhm,
sometimes that starts with learning your voice audibly so that your body can feel it in its natural state. And so what I've discovered, even in my own journey, because I had stopped singing. I hadn't sung in church in forever, but I missed singing and leading people into worship. And so for me, it's like I had to do my own experimentation
mhm.
to sit with and sing to myself, sing vows, sing affirmation, and what I felt afterwards was just as equivalent as if I was singing the word Jesus in a sanctuary.
Okay.
And I think for me, this connects to the scripture. The scripture is coming up even now, that God, source creator, understands your moans and groans. And
Mhm.
so being able to give people opportunity to sing ah or oh or all these
Yeah.
things that we have really never connected until, recently science is starting to connect everything more and more. It's
Right.
more so giving people that, again, that opportunity to say, you know what, I felt something when I did that. What is that all about? And so um, I am leaning more so into the research with how it's connected to chakras. And the biggest thing for me is understanding that music is spiritual. It's so spiritual beyond words, and it goes beyond words because when you start to connect on a scientific level, that music goes past your frontal lobe, which is where you think with logic. So to have this information is really life changing for me because it also supports in the work that it takes to deconstruct, because there's layers that we gravitated to on the dogma in Christian songs, because it
Mhm.
literally went past our logic and into our amygdala where the flight, fright, freeze zones are. And
Right.
so what I am embarking upon is giving and creating opportunity for people to experience their voice, and then replace the harmful lyrics with words affirmation that can rewire your brain so that you can trust yourself and that you can trust your voice.
Yeah, because when I used to, now I was mesmerized because both my mother and my grandmother sang in the choir. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, and I think, I think my mother and my grandmother just solely went to church just to be in the choir because they had phenomenal voices. Okay. And
Okay.
they were these women that were my grandmother at 70 something had a live-in boyfriend and the whole thing. So she was not the Baptist woman that you would think she would be. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I that just makes me laugh when I think about it. But so I would be mesmerized with both my grandmother would be at 8 o'clock service, and I would be mesmerized with the choir as they would come marching into the sanctuary,
For sure.
for sure, and to the march of the music and everything, and to their voices. Yes, the octave, and like Leah's, she's got musical notes there in the comments. The musical notes, but as soon as the words started, Titus, it brought me down
Mm.
because they were talking about how you were a wretch and how you needed to, Lord, come save me, and it was like, what,
Yeah.
and yeah, and the same thing with my mom. She would do 11 o'clock service, and they come marching in, and it would be high stepping, and a little
Sure.
bit of dancing, and the music. But as soon as the lyrics came into it, nothing against the choir itself, but just listening to those words, it was not something. I didn't know the word then that I was searching for, but it wasn't something that I wanted to embody me with.
For
It
sure.
was,
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of my awareness now. When I even go to listen to gospel music, a lot of the gospel music I have to reword metaphysically in order
Hmm.
to really sit with, because I understand the power of music and I understand how music affects the brain. And in order for me to feel and be aware, let me say now, I don't want to say feel, but be more aware that I am already whole, some of the work has been deconstructing and rewriting lyrics and rewriting. I ain't gonna say I can't rewrite the gospel songs, but I can hold space to reimagine what some of these songs would sound like if they were written from a metaphysical point of view versus a dogmatic approach. And I found some very, very powerful things that have come up when you go back and unpack some of these gospel songs that are very dogmatic.
Right.
So, because the music is very powerful when you get into just vibrations and harmonics. There is a sound within the sound with music that people are not aware of. So there are
Like
other
affirming the language of, it's not like you were saying. Also, I remember it was a short that you did about supporting the nervous system, or
Mhm.
regulating the nervous system, the sound, the music, and the affirming language to affirm, uh, to support your nervous system. You talking to
Absolutely,
you, right?
absolutely,
In
and your body knows your voice. So when you sing, when you hum, your body is taking um, what is the word I want to use? Your body becomes subject to the voice that has power over it, and you
hmm
ultimately have power in the way you speak, the way you move, and when you speak and you sing and hum, several things are happening in the ether. Those
hmm
that don't know anything about sound, like music is sound, and when you begin to study, there are sounds that we can't even hear that are still taking shape. And
right.
so to sing or a hum for that matter, you're putting out a frequency of vibration. You can hear the foundational tone, but there's other tones that you can't hear that are actually sounding that your body resonates with. And so
Okay.
when you get into that and just the experience of it, your body automatically knows what to do. So that's why some people may cry, some people might smile, somebody might, want a hug, or they might feel a release, because ultimately the sound is doing the work in ways that we can't even always articulate if we were just to say it out loud.
Right. So that would be also, so have you, okay, here, this question isn't written, so it wasn't one of my questions that I wrote down in here. So light language,
Mm-hmm.
or what is called speaking in tongues, or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. I speak, that's one of my gifts that was opened up to me, is light language. And, you know, when my higher self calls me to do it, I just surrender to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that I love when I hear people put their light language to music.
Mm-hmm.
Have you uh, in have you been part of any of that yet?
Yes, I actually have created some YouTube videos with light language and music, or the ambiance. Because for me, it's just like being in a worship service, to
Mhm.
put that light language on some strings or some instruments that create that angelic atmosphere. Uh, what is happening on a scientific level is really is creating an opportunity for your body to feel safe.
Mhm.
And so that's why a lot of times if you go to a church service and they start playing certain chords, the major, the minor, well, really the minor creates like this deeper alternative state to where
Mhm.
your mood goes into this somber approach.
Right.
Um, and if you're not musically, so it's kind of, it's like you have to know like the difference between music, the major and minor, but you can feel it. You can feel it, but you can feel it within your body and in the room. But going back to your question in regards to the light language, I have put some light language over some tracks just to
Mhm.
enhance the experience of the light language piece. Because again, light language is what I call just another vibrational state.
Yeah.
And so with that, it's still musical because of the rhythm, and being
Mhm.
able to take the syllables that your soul is saying and put it with a beat. It's
Mhm.
almost like the sound of a shaman, because shamans are medicine men, and they use music and beats in order to uh, enhance or go into the subconscious mind. And really, again, it's going back to that science piece of what music does. It goes beyond the logic and gets you into a state. And that's really what one of the things that I'm really working on is to bring the conversation to the table, that the presence of the Lord is not inviting this being outside of us, but is really our body's way of changing states
Yeah.
so that we can get into a place of hearing what our soul wants to say, to see the visions, to see the dreams, to believe. Because ultimately, when we are in worship, this confidence that we have in God is actually confidence that we built within ourselves, just the trust that all things are going to work out. And so,
Exactly.
in order to support this conversation as people are leaving religion, changing religions, I think it's really going to be a big conversation to have, that this presence of the Lord is not about uh, paying homage to this deity outside of us, but creating a frequency that we alter our own state so that we can trust the voice that we're hearing or feeling within.
I also think also that when a lot of people are deconstructing and going and learning, because sometimes it's a process. It's unlearning one thing and
Mm-hmm.
then learning, then going within yourself and learning more about yourself. And
Mm.
also that you don't have to replace one thing with another.
Yes,
That
absolutely.
it's okay to go within and start building from within and not having to go replace it. Like for me, it was I replaced, the Baptist background. I replaced it with the born again background,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's non-denominational. But it was
Mm-hmm.
like it just it I replaced it. I
Mm.
didn't I didn't I didn't go within. I just replaced it and it stayed surface. And
Mm.
I think that that when they go in and they through through what you're doing, the service that you're doing, they can learn how to calm their nervous system so that they
Mm.
don't have to replace it with anything but themselves. I think what you're doing is right.
Absolutely, you can keep it, you can alter it, but it's really learning how to go within to trust what you hear and trust the power that you have to change, alter, and do what works for you. And I believe that when you begin to sing and use your voice as medicine, it's hands down a whole life changing experience, because you don't have to have anybody, quote unquote, lay hands on you. You can create the environment yourself. Um,
Exactly.
or you can go into other spaces and be able to sing with other people without having this fear of how you sound.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's definitely a beautiful experience to have, to be able to sing, create this sound within yourself so that your nervous system is calm, and so that you can move throughout the world without feeling anxious all the time or feeling irritable all the time. You legit have something that you can do to calm you down, and put you in a space to be able to deal with life, period, point blank.
Mm.
And there's so much research that is opening up to us on even the connection with the nervous system and the chemicals that are even released when you sing. And I'm fascinated now because there's even research and conversation around how deep your tongue goes, and if my memory serves me correctly, your tongue goes all the way down into your gut area. So when you are singing and humming, like you're not, you are there. There are certain nerves within your body that's actually getting a form of vibrational treatment
Right,
that
right.
this supports your entire body and how you're made up.
I remember there was a short that I saw you do, a reel that I saw you do, and I saw you speak and not do, like you're not entertaining. Do you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
you were speaking, and I came in at the end of it, and then of course when I went to try to get back to the beginning, of course it moved, it's it scrolled, and I couldn't get
Hmm.
back to the right to the right one. But you were talking about Ezekiel's vision,
Oh
right?
yes, yes.
And it was you were talking about the ideas being like a wheel
Hmm.
or cycles and seasons and embodiment. Could you kind of,
Now
if you
this
remember?
was just a. I remember the post because it was for me. It was. I think of the Bible again as a tool to understand how life works. I don't
Mhm,
look at the Bible anymore as a moral book that you got to live this way. I believe it's a book that speaks to different things that we we can be aware of if we open up our heart and open up our mind. And so
mhm,
this particular thought came because I was reading about chakras. And those that don't know about chakras, these are different energy points in the body. This is what they use for acupuncture when they're trying to find, where to pin you at to relieve pressure and all those things. And I was reading on chakras, and what I was discovering is that chakras um, are described as wheels. And so when you get into the conversation of wheels and where the chakras are located, there's also a thought in regards to these chakras. They're basically like stairs going from
mhm.
root to the crown. And my revelation in this conversation was, what if Ezekiel, because there's a song, Ezekiel saw the wheel, whale up in the middle of the air. What if the conversation is that Ezekiel was actually looking at chakras and not heaven, as a lot of people try to preach that? And I was just in this thought pattern, really, of what if Ezekiel was looking at chakras and different seasons and times, and my mind just went to, the four seasons and the four faces, and maybe these are different ways that we can interact with how to move and function with these ideas.
Right, right. Yeah, and I was like, oh, this is so interesting. Then when I went to look at it, because I had to go back to your page, and I'm going, which one was that? And I'm going, Instagram doesn't really put, it doesn't really catalog our lives as
Yeah,
videos.
yeah. And this
Easily
actually
enough.
wasn't a video. It wasn't a video, so that's probably where you have to go back. It was a picture of a human body with the different colors of the chakras.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
okay, I'll have to look for that again, because it was like, oh man, I, and it was because I must have touched it, or I remember my dog trying to get my attention, and when
Mhm.
he hit the phone, I touched something, and I'm going, no, that kind of thing, kind of like one of those kind of things. But
Yeah.
it was the now I understand it, at least, that the symbols of these chakras have a vibrational a vibrational hertz to it in our
Absolutely.
body.
Absolutely. Each chakra is
Yeah.
connected to a certain sound, a certain key. And so when you
Mhm.
play certain sounds, then that part of that chakra is vibrating to get you into alignment. And they use this to with tuning forks for back
Mhm.
pain, for uh, removing the pain from like nerves that are pinching up. And they're
Mhm.
finding, and there's research that shows that the vibration from the tuning forks will get in there and do it right.
Okay, so guys, you might hear me say this and go, well, why did she even go there? TMI. But when you're when you've gone to the bathroom or you're going to the bathroom, whether you're urinating or taking a dump or whatever,
Hmm.
your body has these uh, uh, vibrational. We think of them as feelings, but when it's moving through each, uh, I don't know what you would call it, each uh, portal
Hmm.
of how it moves in order for it to be eliminated. I found for myself that I can feel the different vibrations as it's moving through to if I'm not in a hurry, and if some people go, I gotta poop and just get this done. And sometimes if you just take a moment and as it moves, you go, oh, it's moving through this kind of like a cavern, and it's moving through here, and then there's another resonant, kind of thing, and you go,
For
oh, and
sure.
now it's right for sure.
Mm.
So our body is moving through, having all these the same thing with listening to your heart, and listening to, I remember the doctor wanting to check, because I was having a problem with my feet, and he went and he took his stethoscope, and he was listening to, I didn't know I had a heartbeat in my near my ankles.
Mm.
There's a, to make sure that, he goes, well, you got a little second heart down there.
Mm.
That's the way he told me, you've got all these little pressure points that are attached to your heart, but
Hmm.
we can tell if the blood flow is
Yeah.
doing. And I went, oh, so you feel, and he says, and then he checked my heart, and he says, well, they're beating a little bit differently, so I want you to, I want you to do this and this, right? And I was like, oh, so does that mean my lungs have a different vocal range that it's giving to my body? Y- that kind of thing, what's my respiratory system, is it
Hmm.
singing a different song? you you know what I mean? It's like, okay, I
For sure, for sure. I'm still researching, but from what I have discovered, like every aspect of your body is attached to a different frequency. So you have your heart, right? And really your I would say your heart and your lung is attached to the same chakra right here.
mhm,
So when you do your heart chakra, it's attached to your lung area.
okay,
So I wouldn't necessarily just off the top of my head, argue that they're different because they're attached to the same chakra.
okay. Yeah, and the doctor isn't talking about chakra. He's talking about what he's learned in his book, what he's
Yeah.
doing with his stethoscope, and you know, because I was like, I looked at him. I said, "Why are you doing that? My heart is up here." And he goes, "No, well, we listen to see if certain things are beating like they should be." and then it told me, take a dry, dry brush, dry rub your legs, before you go to bed, so that circulates the helps the blood to circulate, and it keeps this beat up, and it'll keep your feet warm. And at first I thought he was just okay, maybe he's a little loopy, because every now and then you got a loopy doctor. But now when I learn more and more about the chakras, it kind of makes sense,
Hmm.
you know.
For sure.
So
I mean, when could when you think about your body being in alignment, and I could see maybe even just hearing you talk, if the body's supposed to be aligned, then I can see why he was listening to different aspects of the body to see if they were beating the same. Because if they're not beating the same, I can I can connect how that would be out of alignment, because you want your
right,
body to rhythmically flow together.
exactly, exactly. Of course, the doctor might not say alignment. They're going to use whatever their terminology
For
is
sure.
for it, but it definitely makes sense. Okay, so we got. Do you have enough time still?
I
Because
got
we're
about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So my sole spotlight question is, when someone begins shifting from being told how to experience God uh, towards discovering a new direct and intimate relationship with the divine within themselves, from your lived experience, how can you how can you help them understand their that transition? How
From my lived experience, I would say it really takes conversation, honest conversation. I really believe that a lot of this journey starts out with being free to speak whatever you are feeling about whatever is coming up. Because everybody's journey, they might be similar, but it won't be the same. Like, how are you navigating, relationship with what you feel about yourself while you're navigating family? Everybody's experience is not the same. Or, some people are able to leave church and be okay. Some people are not.
yeah,
And so the way that I assist and support is really pinpointing where they are struggling as they are starting to ask the questions.
okay, okay,
And if they have those questions, then we unpack those questions, or we hold space to answer or not answer, depending on the individual. But I would say it's really creating that safe place to say, you know what, I am having this experience, and I just need to talk. Or I need to be with somebody that understands. Because sometimes you can't even find the words. Sometimes it's just being in the room with somebody that makes you feel safe enough to just be with whatever it is.
right, right. And with him saying that, this is why this my room is this way, for you to be safe to ask a question, for you to be safe to come as you are. I remember when I was in church, guys, I I I got the chance to sit in the back pew or whatever they call it, in back of the church, where the nurses sat and whatnot. I remember a homeless man coming in, and he sat in the back. And when it was time for the at the end of the church, they would call people that wanted to come to the Lord up to the front, so that they could, you know, give their dedicate their life to whatnot, whatever the little, what my uncles would go rigmarole was, right? This guy got up, and he was going to walk up to the front. He had a torn shirt. He had pants that were that didn't go all the way down to his. They were they went down to maybe his ankles, and the it was the pants were dirty, and he had no shoes,
mm,
and they would not let him go to the front,
mm,
right? And I was sitting there, church had ended, everybody was walking out. I was waiting for, my mother to come out of service, take off her robe and everything, so she was in the back. And I was listening to the deacons, not even the minister, but the deacons, who were telling him, well, the next time you come, you have to have a pair of shoes, and you have to have a clean outfit.
oh wow.
So so then, of course, this little girl was going, well, you just lied. The minister just lied, because he says, come as you are.
Mm,
God says, come as you are. But you didn't let this guy go up
mm,
and give his life to God.
yeah.
You wanted this guy who was homeless to come clean,
Mm,
to have a pair of shoes. Maybe he didn't have a pair of shoes. I was really confused,
mm,
right? And the song you were take there was a song that they were singing, take me in your holy place, make me whole, let me be loved. And wait a minute, you were singing the song and having the parishioners sing after you, but you weren't being very Christian like to this gentleman,
mm,
right? The next time, the next service that happened, this guy didn't show up.
mm,
To me, I was going, what if that was his moment,
mm,
that he was called to be, quote unquote, saved, and have a different life, or something changing him, that human beings said, you can't go up there.
mm,
You
yeah.
don't mean come as you are, that kind of thing. So that's why I want people to know that this isn't about us saying we're right and you're wrong. This is
Absolutely.
us saying, this is what we went through, and this is what we're sharing with you, and this is what we're going to suggest. And then you, as uh, the individual, gets to choose what's for your highest and greatest good. Take what resonates
Absolutely.
and leave what doesn't. All
Absolutely.
right. So I want to thank you for being part of this soul conversation. I want to thank you for being part of this emerge and flow. And I want to thank you for sharing you with
Thank
us.
you for the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to brace your platform, and I echo, what you've said. Like, we need more. We need spaces like this, and so I want to invite those that enjoyed the conversation to follow me on all social media, Titus Glenn Official. And if you're looking for a spiritual community, check out the Inner Chamber, some place for spiritual creatives who are on their journey of personal and spiritual development. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay. And um, will you send me your YouTube page, so
I will.
that when I save this on my YouTube, I can list you as a collaborator?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Definitely. And Titus, I also upload this to my Spotify as
Okay.
well. My
Amazing.
Spotify pod, podcast as well, just to let you know. I let everybody know, just in case some people don't want to be on Spotify. I totally
I just
understand. Yeah.
understood. Thank you so much.
So everyone, thank you, Leah, thank you, Casey, thank you, Grace, thank you for putting your comments in there. And for anybody that sees this in replay, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. This conversation is for, not just for us, because this is how we've grown. This is for you, so that you can grow and expand and eventually evolve, because that's what we're all here to do, is grow, expand, and evolve, and then wash, rinse, and repeat. It's not about getting it right. It's about just having a journey. Thank you so much for being part of being part of this moment. So, any last words, uh, Titus? Because I'm going to end the streams.
No last words. Just speaking blessings to everybody.
All right. One love, peace, and blessings to all.